Hello, it's Amy Rofale with your Friday Red Alert Report with the Jerusalem Connection. Today I want to talk about how anti-Semitism seems to bleed across the disciplines that we are discussing each week in our reports. We talk about up-to-date examples of anti-Semitism in academia, in economic organizations, in media outlets, and political entities and bodies. But what I want you to understand is that when I discuss a particular facet and an example, believe it or not, they all seem to be interwoven, and one's agenda is always bleeding over into the next facet's agenda. A case in point includes the notion of the political movements that try to demonize and delegitimize Israel using the UN as their mechanism. Oftentimes the UN responds with different rhetoric that demonize Israel, but very few decrees are actually set forth to delegitimize Israel in a legal sense. Another example is the European Union, the economic body in Europe that is seeking to demonize Israel by labeling its products and services so that consumers in Europe will be encouraged not to buy products that are made in contested regions in Israel, Judea and Samaria. Then there's another example. Recently on CNN's website, they posted an article about ISIS. It was called Beyond ISIS, 2016 Scariest Places. And on this website article, they had a map that depicted the Middle East. And it had various labels of cities and countries around the Middle East. And where the label for the nation-state of Israel should have been, there was actually a red square labeled Palestina. Now this is quite interesting since any map quiz taking grade school student would certainly know where to put Israel on a map along with Jordan and other nations that have been established for decades in the Middle East. But this is an underlying example of a subtle anti-Semitism where for example, Iranian rhetoric of wiping Israel off the face of the map was then actually literally exemplified in this map posting on CNN. Now, of course, CNN defended its action and saying it was just merely an oversight, it was a mistake, it was shoddy editing, shoddy reporting. Well, that may be the case, but I would venture to guess that at least one person deliberately let that posting go on the website to show Israel not labeled on that map, and instead the label of Palestina, which doesn't even exist on any legal map. Web blogger Philip Weiss posted this week an article demonizing Rabbi Shlomi, who you may know from the TLC, Shalom in the Home, and other CNN, Fox News, MSNBC talk shows. He is well versed in working with political figures in the United States with pro-Israel agendas. Now, he posted an opinion piece in the New York Times calling John Kerry anti-Semitic for not taking more actions and paying more attention to the terror that's occurring in Israel, especially in the last 3 months. There's another pro-Israel writer named Mark Schulman, who's published in Newsweek magazine, also offering the same opinion that the American leadership currently is displaying a form of anti-Semitism by not taking more outcry and outrage against what's happened in Israel on the streets of Israel to the citizens in the last 3 months. This particular reporter justified his rebuttal to this because not enough Israelis were killed for people to be outraged. The fact that only 22 Israelis have died since the terrorist attacks since Yom Kippur means that it's not such a big problem that we should all get worked up. So that's a little bit of an odd thing, that there's not enough people dying, even though scores of Israelis are terrorized on a daily basis, many of whom have been injured and are in the hospital. So that's just a very odd thing to rebut a difference in opinion for how the United States should react. So I believe that is a form of anti-Semitism to say that not enough people have died from a certain religion or a certain region for you to be concerned and certainly be outspoken and do something to quell the violence. We have to put that into perspective then against some other issues that have occurred, at least in the United States. For example, there was a Muslim school student who made a homemade clock, which was misconstrued by the teachers as being a bomb, and in the see something, say something culture that we live in, they certainly alerted authorities. Well, this young boy was invited to the White House as a result, got numerous scholarship offers and calls from tech companies, all as a reaction to the perceived Islamophobia that Americans must have because it singled out one Muslim student who had some sort of contraption that looked unfamiliar. So only one student has to get erroneously called out for a terrorist act for everybody to be called Islamophobic, but 22 Israelis are not enough to die for people to be infuriated about terrorism. The point of my parallel here, which isn't perfect, is that this helps define what anti-Semitism is. The fact that there's an unequal standard or an unequal set of guidelines by which you assess and analyze a situation, and you apply them unequally to different situations, particularly the Jewish people or the nation of Israel, in order to meet then an underlying agenda. This reminds me of a verse in Isaiah 45:19. I have not spoken in secret from somewhere in a land of darkness. I have not said to Jacob's descendants, seek me in vain. I, the Lord, speak truth, and I declare what is right. It is our responsibility as Christians and Jews and other peoples who simply want to seek truth and understand it, because that's the first step in seeking God, that we cannot let the truth be trod upon. We cannot allow reporters and vocal groups outcry the truth. We must constantly be seeking it and publishing it where we know we can have an outlet. Whether we write a letter to a congressman, talk to our neighbors and friends, a letter to a newspaper, always look at what's being reported with a critical eye and seek the truth, because God will shout the truth from all the corners. We just need to find it. Shavua Tov. Have a great week. Shabbat Shalom.